the Vanderlyn gang versus the Grove Street families. Now, in order for us to get the best understanding on who would win in a battle between these two gangs, we have to look at them a little bit closer and figure out why they're so different from one another. Both of these gangs are led by 4 men. The Grove Street families have CJ, they have Ryder, they have Big Smoke, and they have Sweet. And then you have the Vanderlyn gang, who's named after Dutch Vanderlyn. If you didn't know, now you know. Followed up by Arthur, Micah, and Hosea. And if you want to compare their leadership, they're actually pretty similar. You have the rat trader, you have the angry out of control one, the leader, and then the more wise one.
Try to stop Dutch getting all of you killed.
The biggest difference really comes down to how big they are. One of the most frequent comments we got on this video was about the sheer size difference in each of these gangs. Depending on how you played San Andreas, the Grove Street families could be massive depending on how many territories you took over, how many territories you upheld. I'm assuming, and I'm going to safely say, you could get anywhere between 100 to 150 people. That's probably being a little bit lenient, but I think that's fair to say. And then across the board, you have the Vanderlyn gang, which only has about 24 people, depending on who you ask, maybe 25. So when you want to compare size difference, it seems like the Grove Street family would just absolutely overrun the Vanderlyn gang, but that's when it brings in a few other factors. The comment I saw most was in regards to Deadeye, how pretty much Deadeye would separate the Vanderlyn gang from the Grove Street family no matter how many people they had and no matter what type of weapons they were using. But before we get into the weapons and cheat codes and all the other things we're going to talk about, let's talk about Deadeye and what that really is. There seems to be a lot of confusion on whether or not it's a special ability or just a gameplay mechanic, and it's kind of somewhere in the middle. Deadeye represents the skill and abilities of the Vanderlyn gang members. That's how much they train. It's a part of the component of their gang. They're all just that good at dueling and shooting, and it's what you can do in that time that Deadeye's on. It represents what they can do in a split second within the game. Now, a question that has to be addressed is that does everyone in the Red Dead Redemption world have access to Deadeye? And that's what makes this debate really heat up and get interesting, because pretty much any time you walk into the line of sight of a Vanderlyn gang member, they're able to basically instantly headshot you, including long-barreled rifles with scopes known as sniper rifles, which is probably the third most comment we've gotten, is that basically modern weapons would be something that would just make the Grove Street family so much more powerful than the Vanderlyn gang. Let's see us drink your water. Which at first thought absolutely makes sense. How are you going to overcome machine guns, long-range, high-powered sniper rifles, rocket launchers? Those are massive assets to have in a battle, especially against people from the late 1800s. But we can't forget the Vanderlyn gang has access to a Gatling gun. They have a long-range rifle with a scope on it. They have access to weapons that would be substantial enough to fight back. And that's where we have to measure the value of each person in each gang, right? Like, yes, the Grove Street families could be near 150 people and the Vanderlyn gang only 24, but each Vanderlyn gang member, one, has access to Deadeye, but they're able to probably take down anywhere from 3 to 5 or more Grove Street members individually, because the Grove Street family members, they're foot soldiers. Whereas the Vanderlyn gang, they're all people that were brought up as family, they were trained. These are people that would not be in the Vanderlyn gang if they weren't super tough. And I'm not saying the Grove Street families are some just like pushover team that anyone can join, but there's just a difference in knowing how to survive in the late 1800s Wild West and living in Los Angeles in the 1990s. There was a lot of commentary around cheat codes and whether or not the Grove Street families would have access to infinite health if the Vanderlyn gang could use Deadeye, and that's a really interesting subject because it is within the parameters of the game, and those could argue that if you're inputting Deadeye, you can input infinite health. But if you want to argue cheat codes, there's nowhere in the game that says any of those members has the ability to conjure up magic that gives them the weapons or the vehicles. Whereas it's talked about in the game, the Vanderlyn gang has the ability to shoot like that. It's something that they're able to do within the game, within the lore. There are cheat codes in Red Dead as well, and at the same time, they don't have infinite health in Red Dead, but they do have infinite health minus explosions and fall damage, which you could argue that it wouldn't matter to have infinite health because explosions in San Andreas could still kill you with the infinite health, and that means that the dynamite arrows that the Vanderlyn gang members had would probably eliminate the San Andreas members, and if they have infinite ammo, that's going to make a big difference. Almost every one of my channel's viewers is not subscribed to the channel. Do me a huge favor and hit that subscription button. We're trying to get monetized. My dog and I. Then there was the conversation around modern vehicles versus vehicles of the past, and I don't think it's fair to say that the Grove Street families would just get access to tanks and jets without the Vanderlyn gang having access to that, because those components would matter in terms of what setting we're going with, which brings us to what setting are we going with when they fight each other? Are they going to be in the middle of the forest, is it just cabins and trees, or are we going to be in downtown LA? That's going to be a big difference. And oddly enough, in this situation, you would think that each gang would do better having home court advantage, but I think in this situation, if it were to happen in downtown Los Angeles, that would create so many more corridors, small areas for the Vanderlyn gang to fight in, kind of like 300, and Deadeye would be so much more valuable in those areas because you could only fight a couple people at a time, but you'd be able to eliminate them near instantly with your Deadeye ability. Whereas if we were in the mountains, the forest, you would think that would, fare better for the Vanderlyn gang because of just they've been there, but the sheer number and size difference would really play a role if you had 100 people just walking towards you in a forest with machine guns. And I know, you're thinking about the movie The Patriot, but you can't outshoot all those people. That John Marston couldn't even take down 15 people with his Deadeye, right? And they had revolvers. What are 24 people going to do against 100 to 150 people who are, running up against them, charging them from different directions in a forest with very minimal cover? We do also have to consider that the Vanderlyn gang stole some Gatling guns from the Pinkertons, and that mixed with dynamite arrows would deter massive clumped raids. You're not going to charge at a Gatling gun or someone shooting dynamite arrows. That's just asking for major losses. But at the same time, it really does matter how much you value the survivability of the Vanderlyn gang versus the Grove Street family in those conditions. Could the Vanderlyn gang hold out? Could they hide? Could they play the guerrilla tactic advantage? I mean, that's going to be very, very interesting. And it would come down to the leadership, the intelligence at the top with, Sweet versus Dutch. A lot of those things would matter. And if you were to run this in a simulation, I'm sure so much of who would come out victorious would come down to the setting, the environment. So who do I think would win? I mean, honestly, the size of the Grove Street families, that really does seem almost insurmountable, especially with the modern day weapons. But at the same time, the Vanderlyn gang is so strong. Each individually, they're so powerful. They've each been trained to be able to shoot and take care of themselves at a level that I just feel like 24 of them, I feel like each one of them can take down enough people to where the numbers of Grove Street just wouldn't matter. Because one, Dutch always has a plan, and he would figure out ways to get the Grove Street family broken down into smaller groups and allow for that Deadeye to take advantage. And while I do think there is substance to the fact that the modern day weapons are much more advanced versus the late 1800 weapons, but there's dynamite on arrows, which is essentially a rocket launcher. There's a Gatling gun, which is basically the minigun. And with Deadeye, I would probably take a late 1800s sniper versus a modern day sniper if that person has Deadeye who's shooting that older rifle. And then there's the fact that most Grove Street family members were just rocking pistols. It's not like all of them had machine guns, all of them had sniper rifles, all of them had rocket launchers. You know what I mean? That it wouldn't be like every single person on Grove Street had an M16. The more I think about it, the more I understand about Deadeye and the abilities of just the main characters from Red Dead, I just feel like there's going to be more situations where Deadeye and the near equal firepower of Red Dead is going to be, it's going to put them on top. What are your thoughts? What side of the fence are you on? Do you think the Grove Street family wins with numbers and modern weapons, or is it the Vanderlyn gang with their Deadeye and their smarts and just their ability to survive? There were so many good comments on this video that I wanted to go through a couple of them before the video ended. The fight ends when everything starts to turn yellow and starts to move immediately. That's such a funny perspective to think about what it must be like to be on the receiving end of Deadeye. It's just like, oh, why is there, oh, I'm gone. Yo, CJ, why are we turning yellow, bro? Now, this is the comment that made me realize just how useless Deadeye is against just an onslaught of people coming at you. Spoiler alert, if you've seen the end of Red Dead 1, it's true. John Marston wasn't even able to get by 15 people. So that's where the 100, 150 people of Grove Street coming at the Vanderlyn gang would be so important, and why setting it would be so, such a big factor in who wins that fight. This is the comment that taught me you could have dynamite arrows. This was definitely a top 5 style comment where people would just put X's around, and at first I was like, what is that? Wow, that's brilliant. CJ's cheat codes is not canon, but Arthur's Deadeye is. That's what we were talking about earlier. We have full auto. XXXXXX. Grove Street is just another O'Driscoll gang to Arthur. Cough, cough, dual tech 9s and body armor go crazy. Everything is over when Arthur smokes 12 packs of cigars to build up that Deadeye. Look, it doesn't matter how fast and how many bullets your gun can shoot if you're already dead. Really depends on the area, in my opinion, because think about it. If it's city, not only the shootout will bring out cops, but maybe the military and CJ group will use that to their advantage. Red Dead 2 Glazers are on a whole nother species. Correct. Alright, that's enough yapping for today. I appreciate you as always. Go out there and do something great.